welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And we would like to invite you to visit badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, our website, our beautiful website that we designed a long time ago. And you can visit it, and there are a lot of pages that are interesting. There's all of our other episodes that you can scroll through very easily. There's our resources page that has all of our favorite things that we refer to a lot in the podcast. You can find there. We have our sponsor page, which highlights all of our sponsors. If you ever need anything, see if you can give them any of your business because they make this podcast possible. And you'll also find information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne, who does online consultations with listeners all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be you. It could be you.
It could be you.
You could do it with the famous Dianne. And we're also still on Patreon. And we're still going to talk about it until you're all over there. And it's very fun. We have our Zoom Hangouts. We have 2 babies coming.
Yeah.
And we're very excited. We have Zoom Hangouts to hang out with them and talk with them about their, upcoming births. And we have extra episodes. There's extra or original content over there. So click the link at the top of the show notes, wherever you're listening from, and you'll find all of our tiers there and see which one you like best. And we also are still hosting our ongoing giveaway for people who leave reviews around the internet, whether it's written reviews or stars or whatever your app allows. Send a screenshot of your review over to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll send you a goodie bag of stickers, podcast stickers, and thank you for nursing in public cards that you can stick around your city or hand to people, and it's very fun. And I got a message on Instagram. Somebody messaged me and asked this question that I thought was really interesting. And it's not necessarily a question. It's just sharing an experience. She said, so I'm curious about this and wonder if you've known anyone else to have this experience. But I was up all night with a stomach bug, and my 3rd baby is 6 months old. Every time I would vomit, one of my boobs would leak.
Oh.
Sorry for the TMI, but it's also fascinating, is what she said. And I totally agree. I was like, that's not TMI. That is so interesting.
It is.
And she wasn't even like, is that normal? Is that, because if it's happening, it's normal.
That's wild.
There's nothing wrong. There's something, her body was just reacting in some way. And her boob was like, no. Maybe her boob was like, you're sick, man. You need some breast milk.
But that is wild. I wonder if it was leak a lot or if it was just a little bit.
I don't know, but you hear all kinds of things. People, obviously one breast can leak while the other one is being nursed.
Yeah.
You can leak during sex. You can leak if you hear a baby crying out in public. Sometimes people who are lactating will, for the longest time, I swear, even after I was lactating, if a baby was crying in public, my boobs would just cramp.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it gets you all you're just wired to be respond to the baby.
I know it.
And who knows what's going on in your body when you're sick? It's just interesting.
It's wild. I love that.
I know.
I'm so glad she sent that in. No, I'm glad she sent that in. I know.
If you have stories like that, let us know, because you're probably not the only one. And even if you are the only one, it's still interesting to just hear what happens to our bodies. There's nothing wrong with you.
I love it.
Just that's cool.
Should I do our review?
Oh, crap. Yes, of course.
All right, let me do our review. I found this podcast with my first son. He had a high palate and a tongue tie, which caused our breastfeeding relationship to have a very rough start. Finding this podcast has helped me stay motivated to ensure we were successful. Breastfeeding was so important to me, and I felt so much better and more knowledgeable every time I listened to an episode. Thank you for your honest, factual, and funny demeanor. I share this podcast with everyone I know. I'm now breastfeeding my 1-month-old daughter and determined to make it last at least a year. Thank you for promoting breastfeeding and reminding everyone there's no shame in breastfeeding in public.
Aw, I love it.
I know. It's so sorry that you had such a rough start with your son. I hope it was a lot easier of a start with your daughter. But I love how she said she listened to us to stay motivated. I think I don't think anybody's ever really put it like that before. I think that's a great way to, because it is, sometimes you need some motivation to keep it going. And there's no shame in that game. So it's like, you do what you got to do to keep yourself going. And if we helped her along the way, I am so happy that we were able to help with that. So congratulations to you on a new daughter. And I hope everything is going wonderfully. And we're going to talk about nighttime nursing.
Yeah. So we got an email at the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast at gmail.com. And it was a listener asking for, well, I'll just read her email. Okay. It says, Abby and Dianne, as basically every review starts, I must, of course, tell you how grateful I am and how much I enjoy your podcast. My baby boy is 9 months, and we've been exclusively breastfeeding since we left the hospital. While we were there, we had so many challenges, every single one of which you've talked about in one episode or another. I just wish I'd known of the podcast before giving birth instead of 2 months postpartum. Right now, I'm bed sharing with my son, night feeding as much as he wants, and breastfeeding on demand when I can. I work full time and he's in daycare, but I pump, so he's still drinking breast milk while he's there. We also seem to be going through a sleep regression of some kind. I desperately do not want to night wean, since I know that this could hasten regular weaning, and I want to breastfeed as long as he'll let me. I love it that she puts it like that.
I know.
I just want to breastfeed as long as he'll let me, because that's so true. I'm also doing okay waking up multiple times per night, or I was until this change in sleeping pattern, which I'm sure is normal and will fade. It just got me thinking. Basically, I want to know what it looked like for others to transition from feeding through the night to sleeping through the night naturally, no matter how long it took or how old the kiddo was. I haven't found anything to tell me what that might look like. If you could share some anecdotes or even do a roundup or something, I would be so grateful. So I did a roundup and would love to share some anecdotes from my own experiences. I'm sure Dianne would as well. So I asked the internet, which I like to do sometimes. Is your child starting to sleep longer at night? Waking to nurse less and less? I got a lot of answers that were like, I wish. Which is, an understandable answer because that's not happening for a lot of people. Probably most people who are listening to this are like, yeah, oh my God, yeah, when's that going to happen? Yeah. And I mean, I can start by talking about just my own experience. Is both of my kids were well into toddlerhood before they were sleeping through the night. I mean, like 3 or 4, before they were like not waking during the night to nurse. And the things got mixed up, because Jack was almost 3 when Exley was born. And so then that added the other element of just nighttime chaos. And I'm going to say this like a few times through the episode because I really want to drill it into everyone's head. Nighttime nursing is absolute chaos. Like there's no way to really control when your child's going to wake up. And if you have another baby, then you're nursing 2 babies at night. and it feels like absolute chaos, and people are crying and babies are crying, and it's like, there's got to be a better way. I got to be doing something wrong. What's the answer here? That's just normal. There's no answer. There's no, like, you're not doing anything wrong. This is what this time of life is. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. And some things are going to work. Some things aren't going to work. Some things are going to work that week and then won't work next week.
Mm-hmm.
While everybody's, and she's talking about her baby's sleep regression. And I hate that word just because it means that we're going back. The word regression sounds like we're going backwards, like we're losing progress. But what's happened? It's just like she said, she already knows that it's normal, and that's great. But you're not going backwards. This is what forward looks like. Forward is just up and down and in circles and upside down. That's just
I'm kind of wondering what their nighttime relationship looked like before the sleep regression, but she didn't say. Like, I wonder how many times they were up at night before the sleep regression and how much times that advanced once the sleep regression hit. Because that is a normal time for a sleep regression. But again, we hate that term, but I don't have anything new to call it. But
no.
I wonder, like, how many times she is getting up. She didn't really say how many times at night.
She didn't say how many times, but she did say multiple. She said
multiple.
She said, I'm breastfeeding at night as much as he wants. And where did she say it? I desperately don't want a night wean. I'm also doing okay waking up multiple times per night. She just said multiple. Or I was until this change in sleeping pattern happened, which I'm assuming means he's waking up more than multiple.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I remember going through times where it felt like they never went to sleep. If somebody said, how many times did he nurse through the night? I'd say yes. He nursed through the night, meaning he nursed the entire time we were in bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do start to kind of have these periods of time where they are sleeping, which I'm at 9 months, her baby's going through times where they are actually sleeping. But then they can wake up every half an hour. And when you're in it, it just feels like you're going to be in it forever.
It does.
And it's at night. You're awake at night, and we all, like, we have to remember, like, what happens to us at night. Like, our guard goes up just instinctually. It's nighttime. We're wired to kind of be more like negative thinking, watching out for threats. So, like, the way you're thinking at night is like not everything's horrible at night. But I did get answers on the internet, and I would love to just read them all. There's enough. I mean, there's a lot, but there's not too many for me to read each one of them. And we can share these anecdotes. I love the word anecdote. Does that make me weird?
No, it is a good word.
It's a cute word. Anecdote.
It is. It is a good word.
Okay. The first comment. I have 3-year-old twin boys who used to nurse all day and all night, but when they turned 2, things gradually changed, especially at night. They are very different. One still needs and wants to nurse before bedtime and will still nurse once or twice every night, but only for a minute or two. The other twin is self-weaning. He only nurses when he needs comfort, such as after a minor injury. At night, he asks me for water and goes back to sleep. They don't sleep through the night yet, but they wake up less and less. They sleep in my bed. Next year, when I wean them and they move to their bedroom, I'm sure I will miss these moments. So she even has she has like a weaning plan. She's like, I'm going to nurse until this 3-year-old next year. Maybe she's nurse until 4 and then stop. I'm sorry. I have to get a piece of paper.
They're, I remember, my kids weaned when they were like 17 months.
Okay.
And I didn't know, because I didn't know what I was doing. So I didn't realize that they probably were just too distracted during the day to nurse, and they weren't nursing at night anymore at that point. So I just didn't even like try anymore. I just figured that they were weaning because I really didn't know anything back then.
Yeah.
But they still got up during the night. Like that, because you're not nursing them doesn't mean that they're going to sleep either.
Right. Because they're not waking. So breastfeeding is so much more than food, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not waking necessarily because they're hungry. So depending on the age of your baby, depending on what their nursing habits are throughout the day, they might be waking up to actually fill their belly. But that's not necessarily true all the time. They also wake up because they're just not designed to be sleeping for that long of a period at night yet. It takes time. We had Rebecca Meeke was on the podcast just recently talking about how sleep develops and how long your baby's going to be sleeping kind of at different ages and how it changes as your baby grows. So definitely listen to that episode. But your baby's still going to be waking just because they're not supposed to be. Yeah. And they're not supposed to be sleeping for like all through the night yet. They wake up to kind of keep themselves safe. That's just how babies are. They don't sleep for long periods of time. So their brain doesn't go into that deep of a sleep. And so sometimes they wake up and they just wake up because they have to wake up. That's just what their brain does. Their brain wakes up and then they need to go back to sleep. And I always wanted to nurse them back to sleep because it was the easiest.
Right.
It was just the easiest thing.
Yeah.
But some people just don't want to be woken up, and that is absolutely understandable. But the nursing and the waking are kind of like they don't necessarily go together. Sometimes your baby's waking of hunger. Sometimes they're waking because they just need to wake up. And then you can nurse them back to sleep. And nursing them back to sleep is not cheating. It's not a bad habit. It's not like it's bad for them. You are literally, it's the opposite. And we're like, well, your baby needs to self-soothe. No, that is what they're doing. Breastfeeding to sleep is self-soothing. That is them putting themselves back to sleep. You're involved because you're the parent. You just because you're a part of this doesn't make them like they're not like they're doing like you're a crutch or something. You're part of it. You're part of the process of them learning how to self-soothe. And that is what they are doing. Okay. I get really riled up about that. I don't know, the self-soothing thing. Ugh.
I know. That drives me crazy.
That's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They are self-soothing. It's great. And that practice and that them learning how to put themselves back to sleep that'll last a lifetime.
Yeah, it will. It doesn't feel like it at the moment, but it will.
Yeah. Okay. So next. I just had my husband go in there with him at night for like 2 weeks and he'd just snuggle him back to sleep. After that, he's fully weaned. He's 17 months. And that's a great thing too. If you can get your partner involved and you want your partner to be, sometimes this is like personality dependent. Like if your baby is like ultra sensitive and really, doesn't want to fall asleep with your partner, that happens. But sometimes partners are, just send them in there, give them a try.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you want to kind of mix things up, have your partner start. We went through this for a really long time in our house where I would nurse Jack to sleep. He's the oldest. And then Josh would rock Exley in a rocking chair. And he would fall asleep like that. And then after Jack fell asleep, I would come out and I would take Exley and he would sleepily latch on. And then I would lay down with him. And then we were all in the bed. So whatever, like that worked for us. There are countless scenarios out there of like what's going to work. So get your partner in the mix. See if there's one of the wake ups that they can take. Also, I remember so follow Rebecca Meeky on Instagram and then listen to her episode. And also, if you want to hire Rebecca Meeky, she is for hire. I worked with her. And one of the things, like nursing to sleep, was I wanted to nurse. Like I said before, like it was the easiest for me. So that was just my go-to. So Exley, when he was like a toddler, would wake up a little bit and then I would just kind of pull him towards me and nurse him. And she was like, try something else first. Like if he's starting to stir, like rub his back, pat his butt, do something like that to see if that will get him back to sleep. Before you pulling him towards you, because then then I'm waking him up even more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, try those things. And so I don't know. I mean, I know I'm going all over the board, but that's something that we did. And I know that people don't want to wean at night because they think that it might, you know, make them wean during the day quicker. And that is a possibility, I guess. Also, night weaning is just so hard. But if you can find ways for your baby, especially if they're older, that sometimes if they're waking up and they're not hungry, they just need to go back to sleep. You know, you can try different things. You can, you know, pat them or rock their body or, you know, put your hand on their butt and kind of move them back and forth. Okay. Christy says, my son stopped breastfeeding at 18 months. He slept through the night at 2.5. My daughter was also breastfed until 18 months. She started sleeping through the night slightly after she stopped breastfeeding. My youngest is 7 months and currently breastfeeding. He does not sleep through the night. Jessica says, I exclusively breastfeed, and my baby is sleeping through the night at 5 months with no sleep training. She did it herself. I pump right before I go to sleep and immediately nurse when we get up at 5:30. I feel very fortunate. That's very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And it could also change.
I was just about to say that might change too. I mean, there's no guarantees that it's going to stay like this. It could absolutely change. I had a consult with a listener this week who their first baby was got up during the night to nurse for like a year, you know, like straight through to like a year.
Yeah.
When she weaned. And then this baby that she's got now is almost a year and he's been sleeping through the night. So it's very different too, baby to baby.
Yeah.
There's no telling what they're going to do. And if they are sleeping, they might not stay that way.
Yeah. Okay, Jessica says, mom of 11 here. So I don't have one answer. You don't really hear of that much anymore, of people having 11 children.
No, you do not.
But the majority started sleeping through the night before their first birthday. If my memory is correct, I think I only... Okay, hold on a second. If my memory is right, I think I only one took until 2+ to sleep through the night. My youngest is 7 and my oldest is 29.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. I mean, she wouldn't remember, would she?
I'd forget which kid was doing what.
I know.
Yeah.
My grandma. Yeah, my grandma had 11 kids. And I'm not saying this about Jessica. I'm saying this very uniquely about my very unique grandma, who is she passed away this year, but she was like a character. And she would tell stories. First of all, she had a girl, 4 boys, a girl, 4 boys, a girl. No, a girl, 4 boys, a girl, 4 boys, a girl. And she said that she planned it like that. That was all planned to have them in that order. And she'll tell you like very specific things about each one when they're babies. And I'm like, this lady is like she's making this up. Because there's no way.
I know.
I can't even remember. It wasn't even that long ago. Anyway, our friends from Davin and Adley, our recent sponsors, they commented on this post on Instagram, and they said, night weaning was a huge improvement for us, all getting more sleep. All of my boys had similar patterns. They would wake nonstop and sleep right next to my boob. When I would try to skip feeds and go longer stretches, it would help me go longer stretches between sleeping. It would help them go. Okay, well, let me read that sentence again. When I would try to skip feeds and go longer stretches, it would help them go longer stretches between sleeping.
Okay.
We have fully weaned and still wake usually once a night, but cuddles only, no more nursing.
See, these babies are still waking. It doesn't matter that they've weaned.
Yeah. That's just their brain. That's what keeps them safe. That's what keeps them, because we talk about, like, if you talk about like SIDS risks and stuff, when you're trying to get your baby to sleep longer stretches, you're trying to overfeed them, you're trying to give them solids before they're ready, and they go into these deeper sleeps because their body's just exhausted or overworking. That's why these things are SIDS risk, because the baby, their brains are doing what they are supposed to be doing to keep them safe. They're learning how to sleep slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So they're waking, and you want them to wake. And now if your baby sleeps longer stretches, don't freak out. That's just what your baby's doing.
Right. But it always, when people say to me, I want a night wean so we can sleep through the night. And it's like, there's no guarantees that you're going to sleep through the night when you night wean. It doesn't mean that your baby's going to sleep unless you are into sleep training, like hardcore sleep training, which we're
not even talking about, because that wasn't even in her email, and she wanted to know what it was like for people going naturally. But you will have something. You will like the patting on the back, the rubbing of the belly, things like that. You will start to develop just other ways of them falling back asleep once they're not nursing anymore.
Right. Snuggles.
When I was trying to get Exley to nurse during the night less, I would say things like, first of all, I would be like, I would nurse him if he wanted to nurse, and I would say, okay, I would say, like, he would be nursing, and I would say, okay, I'm going to put my arm around you now. And then he would unlatch. Sometimes he would unlatch, and other times he protested, but we got to the habit where he would unlatch, and then I would put my arm around his back. And then he would just kind of lay his head down and go back to sleep. It will happen. It will happen. It will happen.
Mm-hmm.
This next comment is from Chula Hoop, which I love that name.
I know.
The Instagram handles are so funny. Anyway, she says, I spontaneously decided I'd try to start night weaning one night because my 2-year-old's constant wake-ups and her little hand twiddling my other nipple were driving me crazy, especially since we bed share. It took a few weeks, and although I was still nursing her to sleep and she would still wake up asking to nurse, cutting out the middle of the night feeds were such a game changer to my quality of life. She turned 3 in November, and in late January, after I went on my first work multi-day trip away from her, she fell asleep and slept through the night just fine without the boob. So now we are only doing one quick nursing sesh before bed, and I feel so liberated, and we're all sleeping so much better. So we're talking about a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The next comment is, we weaned at about a year, but still support my toddler to sleep in other ways. Cuddles, give a bottle for a while. Whenever she cues us to do so. She was on a floor bed in her room starting at 5 months old when she was consistently rolling on her own. At 2.5 years old, she has just recently stopped calling for us in the night within the past month or so. Some early mornings she calls for us, and we usually go in and just fall asleep next to her until the morning. Okay, so we also have a mixture of bed sharers and babies in their own room.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems to be, so at 2.5, this baby in her own room at 2.5, she just recently stopped calling for us. So, okay, so we had a 3-year-old, 2.5-year-old. Next comment was, mine was about 2. We co-sleep and still do when she started to sleep through the night. Now we have another 2-year-old. One day I suddenly realized it was happening. I can't actually remember what it did. I should caveat that she would often wake up around an hour after going to sleep, around 8:30ish, and then possibly when I got into bed, 10:30ish. But then she'd sleep through. Since dropping her lunchtime sleep when she was 2 and 10 months, she basically sleeps from 7-ish through. I have done nothing to help her do this. It's all been her. Sometimes we have bad nights and she will be on and off my boob for hours trying to resettle, but they don't happen very often. Yeah, and I remember Rebecca talking about that too. Like there was, it's really common for babies to kind of have like a few wake ups like at the beginning of the night and have like a longer stretch kind of in the middle and then start waking again. I feel like I remember that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Next comment. I'm just going to read the rest of the comments. We intentionally night weaned at 18 months since he was waking 3 or 4 times and we didn't want to co-sleep. So this was getting really gnarly for our sleeping. We dropped 1 feed at a time by Daddy going in for comfort, and it took about a week until he slept through the night. Since then, we still do the occasional midnight milk at now over age 2. Yeah, that is one of the benefits of the baby being in their own room, or the toddler being in their own room, is that if dad just goes in or partner goes in, the non-lactating parent goes in, then you're just not even there. It's so hard when you're co-sleeping because if you want to try to like knock out a session, like you're still there.
Yeah. And that is really, these parents are making it sound like it's so easy to do too. And I'm sure it was not that easy, but I've had parents that tried to do that, like send dad in or send the partner in, and the baby would like scream.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And it did not go over well. Yeah.
That's why, again, I think so much of this is personality dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Because some babies that are just more chill are going to be, more accepting of it. And some are just going to be protesting left and right. And especially if they see someone who doesn't have boobs come in, they're going to be like, get out.
Yeah.
Okay. I bed share with my 2.5-year-old son. He nurses about 1 to 2 times a night. It's gradually just become less and less. Baby just gradually started waking. Oh, it's the same. Wait, oh no, it's a different comment. Baby just gradually started waking fewer times, but there were still phases with mods feeding during growth spurt. It was not linear. Okay. Jesse says, I think maybe by 3, my son was sleeping through the night. It's hard to say because we bed shared. So if he woke up, I would just sleep until he nursed. Sleep while he nursed.
Mm.
Oh my God. 2 more. My 17-month-old is 1 month. My 17-month-old is on month 2 of being in daycare. I just went back to work for the first time in his life and his big brother's lives. He's adjusted pretty well to no nursing during the day, but has been a little booby barnacle nonstop from bedtime until wake up, which is really common. You see that with babies, especially if parents gone back to work and they don't see you all day, then they're up all night like nursing.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, I'm sleeping out of town for work, and my husband said he went to sleep just fine and hasn't woken up once yet. So maybe we will be dropping the nursing to sleep soon because I think it will help us. I think it will help his self-confidence as well as all of our quality of rest. Yeah, 17-month-olds don't really have like a sense of self-confidence. But I know what she means. Like again, that whole idea of just like self-soothing and just going to sleep without nursing, which is a transition for all babies. Okay, last comment. My son is 10 months and still wakes 3 to 4 times to latch on, but I'm not sure if he is actually feeding or just soothing himself back to sleep. For the most part, he can latch on himself and soothe without disturbing me too much. So far, we have not had a night where he didn't wake at all until morning. However, if his diaper leaks and I have to change him or say I have to get up to pee in the night, that disturbance arouses him enough where he just decides to have a feed and then goes back to sleep. I guess I don't have much advice on the matter, but that's where we are at so far. And that's all the comments. And hopefully that was helpful in what this person was asking for. But I want to again say that this time is just absolute chaos. And there's no, like the one comment, it's not linear. There's no right way to do it. There's no doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just your baby's going to do what you got to do, and you got to figure out what you can do to manage it.
Yeah, whatever that looks like for your family.
Yeah. And try all the things. I mean, we had 10 different bed setups in this house, to help just everyone get the sleep that they want while baby or toddler was doing whatever they were doing during the night. And it would change. And then when they would change, maybe we would mix things up until they were just sleeping for longer stretches.
Yeah.
And that's all I've got.
So good luck.
Yeah. Good luck.
Good luck.
May the force be with you. Godspeed. You will get through this. You will get through it.
Yeah, you will.
They sleep. My kids, they're all sleeping through the night now.
Yeah, once their little brains can do it, they'll do it. But there's typically not a lot you can do to rush it. It just is whatever it is that they're doing.
Well, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.